As early as 1485, Leonardo da Vinci sketched a design for a parachute. It was much later, though, in 1797, that André-Jacques Garnerin made the first successful parachute descent. And it was only at the beginning of our century that the first truly practical parachute came into use.
Well, we're the first generation of humans that gets to play in the air. You know, from the past, from the very beginning, people have looked to the air and wanted to fly of some kind, like a bird or something like that. And we're the first generation of human beings that gets to play in the air. It's a real important time.
Skydiving is sometimes looked upon as a sport of madmen or people with a death wish. But ask an enthusiast, and he'll tell you the sport is all about life. Skydivers know why the birds sing, one of them said. Poetic, perhaps, but not too convincing. Birds might be quite puzzled at these odd creatures who whoosh past them at 120 miles per hour, going straight down, mind you. The motives, then, have less to do with understanding the birds than with understanding yourself.
It's a relaxant, it's a tranquilizer, it's a healer. I'm totally addicted to it. I have been since the first jump I made, and I just can't visualize life without jumping.
It gives me tremendous feeling of freedom. It gives me a 60-second adrenaline rush, which I cannot achieve by anything on the ground.
You know, you go up there and you're falling and you're looking at the earth, or the people that you're with, and the smiles on their faces. And it's just beautiful.
How for the first time in your life, you and the earth are separate. When you go up in the airplane, you're in this little silver tube and you land in it. And when you jump out of an airplane, you have a feeling of self and everything else.
There isn't anything else you can think about when you're jumping. It's occupying every moment of your body. You just need to involve yourself in it mentally as well as physically, and you can't think about a bad day at the office or a hard time at home or an argument with somebody. It all disappears when you're in the sky.
We're three-dimensional beings, okay? But we live in a two-dimensional world, and when you get into free fall, you get back into that three-dimensional element. And the only way you can actually duplicate that on the ground is in water. Otherwise, you're just two-dimensional unless you trip and fall. Then you get three-dimensional for a little bit before you hit the ground.
In the end, what the dive is all about is 1 single minute of free falling. But it's not your normal 60-second minute. During free fall, the mind alters, taking in more impressions than it normally would be capable of. Dropping at 175 feet a second, you enter a kind of time warp. The fall seems to last for hours. Its effect will stay with you for days. Skydiving is a social event. The greatest kick of all is free falling with friends. But jumping with a group is only done after thorough preparation, what's called dirt diving. Little carts called creepers are used to simulate the skydiver's position during the fall. Each move is practiced again and again. Only then can a jump be safely made. When they're finally ready, they've learned how to make the most of their precious minute.
Alone in a blue sky, no feeling of falling, no feeling of speed. As soon as you get stabilized at 120 miles an hour, the background noise blends in, no speed. Someone comes by you, you see the speed.
It's not like you're falling. I mean, it's definitely not like flying. but the space is so big that you actually do feel like you're flying and that you're suspended for a minute. And then as you get closer to the ground and it starts rushing up at you, you realize, yeah, I'm falling.
Experiencing the thrilling sensation of free fall would not have been possible without the modern parachute. The first practical one was invented by Leslie Irving at the turn of the century. For the next 50 years, it was primarily used as a lifesaver. During the Second World War, parachutes carried more than 100,000 airmen safely back to Earth. It was only after the war, though, that jumping from aeroplanes became a widely practiced sport. There are about 20,000 skydivers worldwide, making 2.5 million jumps a year. Statistics show that the risk of falling to your death is 1 in 50,000. Parachutes malfunction only once in 1,000 pulls. To put that in perspective, the figures also show that the equipment is 10 times more reliable than the skydiver is.
Yeah, skydiving is dangerous. If you're careless, you're going to die. There's just no doubt about it.
It is dangerous if you make mistakes, if you're not concentrate on what you do. You have to be absolutely concentrate on what you do.
However experienced and well-focused you are, it still takes a lot of courage to step out of a perfectly good aeroplane and jump 10,000 feet into the unknown. The gear must be nothing less than perfect. Before every jump, the parachute is meticulously folded and straps thoroughly checked. Every detail gone over again and again.
I take pains to be prepared mentally and physically. You just don't go up there with a lax attitude or with your equipment not perfect.
If you miss something during preparation, that can cause danger.
And you can't fix it midair. When something goes wrong, you've got 3 or 4 seconds to fix it. And you'd better thought about. There's no time to say, well, what do I do now? You better know.
Get down, get eye contact with it. Ready, set, go. I'm gonna back it up.
Free falling was first demonstrated by aerial showmen in the 20s and 30s. It was a circus act, part of the pioneering age of aviation. But those early parachutists tumbled uncontrollably. Modern skydiving was really born when a Frenchman named Leo Valentin made a crucial discovery. He found that by moving his arms and legs, he could stabilize himself and control his flight through the air. Studies have shown that the average skydiver's heart races at more than 200 beats per minute during the first seconds of the fall.
Well, after the first 5 seconds, you calm down. After 10 seconds, you reach terminal velocity. You don't accelerate anymore. And it's then mostly a beautiful view. The wind is not felt anymore. It builds up a pressure wave in front of you. It pushes on you, but it doesn't come ripping by like it does on the ground when it's blowing 20 miles an hour. The Earth's a long way away. You have no feeling of falling. It's a feeling of floating, like lying in a soft waterbed. And the fear sort of goes away. That telemetry study also showed that just before the jumper pulls his parachute, the pulse goes back up. And after the parachute opens, the pulse goes down to below normal rest. So there's all sorts of stages. High anxiety just before the jump, the rush right at the beginning of the jump, pulse rate goes down, comes up again just before the parachute opens, and after the parachute opens, below rest, almost sleep.
You're now in the endless minute that skydivers live for. You find you can actually play in the air. There are a multitude of games and tricks you could do, proving that 60 seconds of free fall is a long, long time. For the skydiver, free falling is the main thing. The parachute is just an unavoidable necessity, the only way yet devised of reaching the ground safely. The steerable, square-shaped parachute, though, developed in the 1970s, at least gave skydivers something interesting to do on the slow ride down. Now they can fill those once empty minutes with challenging games, like canopy stacking. Skydiving is a very social sport. Most skydivers enjoy flying in formations and joining together in complex routines. It's not the malfunctioning parachute that threatens the skydiver most. It's a state of mind that sometimes occurs during free fall. The Earth is a long way away. It tries to hypnotize you. You're approaching it rapidly, but you don't experience the speed.
You're driving along, you watch the phone poles, they go whipping by, and you look at the mountain in the distance just sitting there. No, the Earth is in the distance. Until you hit about 2,000 feet, and then everything on the ground starts rushing away from you, and you tunnel vision is called ground rush. And it's time to pull your parachute.
The skydiver tries to give himself over totally to the joy of free fall, but at the same time must remain totally aware. Modern parachutes are deployed by ejecting a small pilot chute that then drags out the main chute. This sheet of nylon must be able to handle enormous loads. Imagine what it would take to stop you if you were going downward at 120 miles per hour in a high-speed elevator. Once you're safely suspended, floating down to earth, all is quiet. The skydiver hits the brakes, and the cameraman, still racing downward, gets an idea of how fast he's really going. The ground is rushing upward. It's time for that gentle pull on the harness.
I'm going one way down, but I have a parachute that I believe tremendously. I mean, that's part of me. My parachute is my best friend.
That piece of nylon may be their best friend, but skydivers don't like to be referred to as parachutists. Those are people who jump from planes with a wire attached that pulls out the chute no matter what they do. Parachutists do not experience the wonder of free fall, do not make the decision between life and death themselves. In the square parachute, the skydiver has found the ideal vehicle. The rig is strong and safe, and it gives the passenger a great deal of control. The chute actually behaves exactly like a wing and can be flown into the wind. By changing the shape of the canopy, the skydiver can control its velocity down to very slow speeds and steer with pinpoint accuracy. Today's parachutes allow skydivers to land within inches of a target.
All right, that was fun.
Most skydivers choose to spend their free fall time doing formation flying. While skydivers obviously fall downwards, with training they can learn to control their horizontal movements very precisely. Skydivers can actually reach forward speeds of up to 60 miles or 100 kilometers per hour, so great care is essential when joining a formation. Every jump is rehearsed. Formations of 6 or 7 skydivers are quite routine, but larger scale jumps require an enormous amount of planning. Dirt diving may look funny, but because of it, every skydiver knows his position and the risks of collision are minimized. Once the figure is built, it's held for a short time and the next maneuver executed. Competitive formation jumping is one of the most intense group efforts in all of sport. The compulsory figures require precise timing, discipline, and team spirit to get them right. Skydiving is addictive. People often become obsessed and try to build their lives around it. To earn some money, they may give lessons or fold parachutes. They live each day in the belief that the thrill of jumping is worth more than just about anything else. In preparing for championships, groups will train for weeks. One reason is safety, to prevent potentially dangerous collisions, which skydivers call funnels. When the group breaks up, everyone holds his arms and legs straight and dives away to attain maximum separation. In July 1992, after months of preparation, a group of 150 skydivers jumped from 20,000 feet over Koksijde, Belgium. When they reached 6,000 feet, they successfully linked up, setting a new world record. So what does the future hold for skydiving? The gear is about as perfect as it can get, the safety record is improving every year, yet even the best jumpers get bored with forming stars in the sky. Mike Michigan once even considered giving up his beloved pastime. Then, during some solo jumps and while fooling around, he hit upon what's now the big new thing in skydiving: freestyle.
Well, we're trying to combine a bunch of different ideas, like ice skating, gymnastics, things like that. We're using those as kind of springboards for our sport. And we have compulsory moves that you have to show during the dive, and then there's a lot of creative time, and you get judged on the creativity of your performance.
It may look easy, but executing a ballet in the sky is very demanding and takes a lot of practice. The slightest body movement affects your position. Subtle use of arms and legs is essential. Every skydiver has the same fantasy, that the spell of free fall doesn't have to be broken by the jolt of the parachute, that the seemingly endless minute really will last forever.
And maybe in the long run, our bodies will adapt to flight, and there actually will be human flight without parachutes or any other aid. I'd love to fly, but I probably won't see it. I'm probably just one of the stepping stones on the way there.